Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Hello everyone, welcome to Inside Delhi. I am back again with a new session, this time regarding mains test series. The test with the subject being physical geography conducted a few days ago. In this session, we will be discussing all the 10 questions. Those were asked in the paper. So the test comprised, physical geography test comprised 10 mains oriented questions, mains level questions, very basic level questions. But before discussing all the questions and what should be our approach, what should be the answer, few things that I noticed I would like to share with you all, that I should say like this: to express yourself, you should write as a common person. Okay, to express yourself properly, you should write as a common person. आम आदमी की तरीके आपको लिखना चाहिए. But you should be thinking like a wise person. लिखना आपको आम आदमी की तरीके है, common language, generic language, standard words, but you should be thinking like a wise man. Like whatever the thoughts you are having, those should be very key thoughts, good thoughts, perfect thoughts, authentic thoughts, accurate thoughts, and those thoughts has to be written in a layman's language so that anyone can understand very easily. This is not I am saying, Aristotle has said this type of things long ago, but this quote of Aristotle you can actually incorporate while doing answer writing. So why I am saying this? Because I have found that a couple of you are actually, in order to write good answers, you all are vomiting or bombarding with heavy words, and with expectation that these heavy words will like impress the examiner, and the examiner will be kind of flabbergasted, and the examiner will be like give very good marks. But I would like to remind you, I would like to inform you that numbers are not necessarily awarded based on the use of heavy words. Numbers are rewarded in main examination particularly. First thing is contextual relevance. Contextual relevance of your answer. Contextual relevance means what the question is demanding and what you are writing. If the question is talking about impact of climate change on human beings, and you are writing everything about climate change and causes of climate change, you are right. There are different causes of climate change which you have written, but question is not about causes of climate change. Question is about impact of climate change on human beings. Take another example. If the question is about continental drift theory and you are writing about plate tectonics theory only, then obviously your answer might be correct conceptually, but it is not correct contextually. So the first thing to write a good answer is that your answer should be having contextual relevance. This is the first thing. Second thing is your structuring of answer. Structure, presentation. How you structure the answer, how you present the answer, that holds very big importance. What is meant by structure is like you should be giving a proper introduction. Introduction should be like setting the tone and tenor of your answer. Introduction should be, you can consider it this way, that introduction should be kind of a preamble of your entire answer. Then you should be giving the body, and in the body of the answer, all the parts of the question should be proportionately discussed, written, and then you can give a balanced conclusion. Conclusion is like a summary. Conclusion could be a summary of your answer, or conclusion could be like some visionary statement related to the contextual demand of the question. Third, you can also say, third is like using of key terms. Key terms are very important while writing an answer. If you are writing an answer with relevant key terms, obviously it is going to be self-explanatory. You need not write elaborate each and everything. You need not vomit everything. So key terms are very important to write a good, appealing answer. Finally, you can also think about writing legibly. Your answers should be legible. Your handwriting should be legible. ऐसा लिखें कि किसी को भी समझ में आए. So these are like these are like four basic, you can say, parameters on which you can judge your answer. All the four have like they contain within themselves different dimensions. They have their own importance. But overall, in brief, I have like given you this idea that whenever you're writing an answer, think like a wise man, think like a wise person, but write as a common man, common person. And while writing, make sure that your answer is contextually relevant, your answer structure and presentation of your answer is appealing, you use proper key terms, and your handwriting is legible. So with this, let's start our this session, which is a discussion of the test series, test paper of physical geography, basics of geography. The first question was, what are the direct sources of information about the interior of Earth? How do they contribute to our understanding of Earth's internal structure? So this question, like as I always say, before writing an answer, you should be having what? You should be having the basic understanding of what the question is asking. This is the basic determinant of a good answer. So before you start writing an answer, read the question very carefully. Read it aaram se, no need to rush. Read the question, identify the key terms. Key terms means the terms which are very important for the question. If you remove the key terms, question becomes meaningless. So first thing, read the question carefully. So this question is about asking, what are the direct sources? What are the direct sources of information about interior of Earth? And question is asking you, what are? The directive word in this question is what are. Means basic things you need to give in. About what thing? About the direct sources. Direct sources related to what? Direct sources related to interior of the Earth. So what is this is the interior of the Earth. Earth, interior, core, mantle, crust, inner core, outer core, lower mantle, upper mantle, crust. Crust is the upper. Crust is the like outer. Question is talking about interior of the Earth. So you should be, a question expects you to write in context of core and mantle. But the question is not asking you to write about core and mantle. कोर एंड मेंटल के बारे में नहीं पूछा जा रहा क्वेश्चन में कि इंटीरियर ऑफ अर्थ को आप एक्सप्लेन कर दो. दिस इज नॉट द क्वेश्चन दैट एक्सप्लेन और राइट अबाउट द इंटीरियर ऑफ द अर्थ. Question is about direct sources which give us information about the interior of the Earth. So this thing you have to identify, you have to understand. Second part of the question is, how do they contribute to our understanding of Earth's internal structure? What is there here? There is the direct sources. How do the direct sources contribute, or how do the direct sources help us understand Earth's internal structure, composition? So this question has two parts. First part expects you to write about the direct sources regarding interior of the Earth. The second part of the question expects you to write about the contribution of those direct sources in making us understand, helping us understand about the Earth's internal structure. So before you write an answer, you have identified the keywords. So obviously, as I said a while ago, your answer should be having a basic introduction. Introduction should be a kind of preamble. In the introduction, you can touch all the points, all the key terms given in the question, both the parts of the question. Then you will, while writing the body of the answer, you should make sure that you devote almost equivalent number of space and equivalent number of pages and words to both the parts of the questions. It is not that you keep writing about direct sources regarding interior of Earth in 1.5 page. You write about the second part in a quarter page and then you write a conclusion और कहो हमारा तो काम हो गया, हमने तो बहुत लिखा. पर वो बहुत लिखा, आपने कुछ लिखा ही नहीं. You gave disproportionate weightage to one part and you did grave injustice to the second part. So why I am like mentioning this in very much detail, because I have observed in your answers that your answers are not giving proportionate weightage. किसी एक पार्ट को आप ज़्यादा लिख रहे हैं, दूसरे पार्ट के बारे में आपने कम लिखा है. So coming to this question, so write an answer giving proportionate weightage to both the parts. So how we should write? What we should write? First, we need to talk about direct sources. So what are the direct sources? Mining, drilling, volcanic eruptions. Then we have rock samples, geothermal gradient. These you can write. How mining, drilling. Mining means कुछ भी खनन हुआ, कोयले की खान है, mining है, or even like to extract groundwater, there are bore wells. So if you like or oil wells, so something is getting drilled, and while getting drilled, rock samples are coming outside beneath the earth, and when we analyze those underneath rock samples, we can understand that actually scientists are understanding what is the internal composition and structure of the earth. So mining and drilling is a direct source. Then you can write about volcanic eruptions, how volcanic eruptions are kind of help us understand how volcanic eruptions through lava, gases. Then you can talk about rock samples, which I already told. Rock samples not only from mining and like drilling, it is also from oceanic rock samples, oceanic drilling. They are also acting as a direct source about information of the interior of the earth. Make sure that you need not focus much on seismic waves. Seismic waves also help us and give us information about interior of the earth, but seismic waves are a kind of indirect source, they are not direct source. So you can avoid writing about seismic waves. If you can write about these 4 points, your answer will be justified. Then the question is, second part of the question is about contribution of these direct sources, understanding Earth's interior. What are their contribution? First is that they provide first-hand samples. They are providing first-hand samples of rocks and minerals, and with that we can understand very properly. They help determine composition, density. Volcanic material reveals mantle composition. Then borehole data gives a temperature and pressure profile. What is the temperature inside? What is the pressure inside the earth? So temperature, pressure, type of rocks, all these when integrated at one place, they give us a decent idea regarding the interior of the earth and its composition. So in this way you can like write the entire answer. It was a 10-marker question, so you need to write in nearly 150 words. You will have to write a balanced answer. Moving to the next question. Next question is regarding, it is in the context of ongoing global efforts toward biodiversity conservation and sustainable ecosystem. So this top 3 line is actually setting the context of the question. अक्सर क्या होता है कि हम पढ़ते पढ़ते भूल जाते हैं और वी गेट टायर्ड, ओ इतना पढ़ लिया, क्वेश्चन तो मिला ही नहीं. एक्चुअल क्वेश्चन इज स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम हियर. एग्जामिन. व्हाट टू एग्जामिन? हाउ द प्रोसेस of weathering contributes to the development and sustenance of biodiversity. Development and sustenance. So 2 things. First thing is development of biodiversity. Second thing is sustenance of biodiversity. Weathering आपने सबने पढ़ा होगा. Everyone must have studied weathering. कि how rocks and like getting disintegrated, they are getting weathered. But the question is talking about weathering का connection biodiversity से. In UPSC, questions regarding establishing the connections between different topics is very, you can say, favorite, you can say, tool or demand of UPSCs. So this question expects you to connect weathering with biodiversity. how to connect weathering with biodiversity, and not in overall context of general context of biodiversity. The question expects you to write in context of development of biodiversity and sustenance of biodiversity. So while writing the answer, first thing in introduction you can define weathering, what is weathering, and then in the body you need to connect the process of weathering first with the development of biodiversity and second with sustenance of biodiversity. So how is weathering leading to biodiversity? Like how it is leading to development of biodiversity, first dimension. So like soil formation and fertility, weathering leads to soil formation. Rocks are getting disintegrated in small particles in a duration of long duration of time, and that converts bedrock to soil, and it also sets texture, structure, pH, water holding capacity. These things are like determined by weathering, and these actually make soil, and that soil is the basic determinant to contain diversity, biodiversity. Then primary succession, you can write given getting weathered, lichens, mosses, these are like kind of leading to primary succession. So on fresh substrates, how early colonizers like lichen and mosses create organic horizons and enable shrubs and forests. So primary succession related to environment. Primary succession when the initial colonizers are like colonizing a bare surface like rock, or it could be soil or anything, and how with the process of colonization they are leading to the growth of shrubs, and how in a due course of time shrubs are getting converted, getting developed to forest, and forests are acting as a container of huge biodiversity. Then weathering also leads to nutrient transport in terms of dust. So if you can write these basic things, you can easily elaborate, you can easily talk, you can easily establish the connection of weathering to biodiversity. Likewise, in this, while it is also, as I discussed earlier, as I hinted earlier, that it is not only about development, it is also about sustenance. So you can also write more on this, a little more, that how if the weathering happening continuously and it is leading to sustenance of biodiversity, because ऐसा तो नहीं कि एक बार biodiversity हो गई और उसका खत्म हो गया, role तो will remain there, no? Because biodiversity keeps happening, weathering keeps happening, and biodiversity keeps growing on. Moving to the third question, glacial valleys often exhibit distinctive linear depositional landforms. Glacial valleys related to glaciers, often exhibit linear depositional landforms. So what kind of landforms? Depositional landforms. And in depositional also, linear kind of depositional landforms. Describe these features. Which features? These depositional landforms related to glaciers. Describe these features and mention their major types along with locations. So this is the question. Describe the features regarding glacial landforms, depositional landforms. But in this question has three parts. First part is describe the features. Features is the first part. Second is their types, mention their types, and third is their locations. So what I am doing in this discussion, in this session, is that I am helping you identify, I am helping you understand how to identify the keywords, key terms, and how to understand what is the actual demand of the question. Unless and until you are not able to understand the actual demand of the question, doesn't matter what you are writing, your answer will always be considered substandard. So this is three key terms: features of those depositional landforms, their types and their locations. So if you are writing an answer in which you are not giving examples in terms of locations, you might not get good marks. So let's understand. So this is a, like, you can consider an image, not consider, it is actually an image. So this image having some landforms related to glaciers like moraines. Please understand, question was about depositional landforms related to glaciers. So I will be identifying only depositional ones. So eskers is also depositional, moraine, eskers. So this is like, this way you need to understand that question is about depositional, so I should be writing about depositional, not erosional. So what are the key linear depositional features related to glaciers? क्या है? First are moraines. So you can define moraines. Moraines are big debris deposited by glaciers. You can give example of Gangotri glacier. Then you can write about eskers. You can write about drumlins. You can give a basic definition of these, like what are eskers and how, like, drumlins are like streamlined hills of till aligned with parallel to ice movement. Very basic terms are these. You need to give one sentence में इनका definition, basic definition, and you can give like there a couple of examples. Like for eskers, you can give example of Canada's Northwest West Territories. For drumlins, you can give example of Northern Germany and Ireland. So these basic examples will help you suffice the answer, will help you let them meet the demand of the question. The next question is, examine the major factors responsible for the spatial and vertical distribution of ocean temperature. The main context is ocean temperature, but the question is asking you to examine the factors. What are the factors that are responsible for spatial and vertical distribution of ocean temperature? जो भी ओशन का टेम्परेचर है, how the temperature of the ocean is varying spatially and vertically, and what are the factors that determine these variations of oceanic temperature. This is the first part of the question. Second part is, how do these variations impact marine and climatic systems? So impact hai. Second part is asking you to write about impact of these variations on marine and climatic systems. So two parts. Again, the question is having two parts, and you need to write proportionately addressing both the parts of the question. So what are the factors responsible for factors affecting spatial and vertical distribution? So obviously there is latitude, ocean currents, prevailing winds, distance from land, vertical profile. Like latitude, the oceans closer to equator in lower latitude get warmed, warm tropics. Polar region oceans are colder. Then ocean currents, how warm currents like Gulf Stream transports warm ocean currents and warms the arrival place of destination. And then prevailing winds, how the prevailing winds carry surface heat and cause upwelling. These things you can like elaborate in your answer. So latitude, ocean currents, prevailing winds, distance from land, how enclosed seas heat or cool faster than open oceans. And you can also write about vertical profile, which is actually on a very important demand of the question. Vertical profile, you can write about surface layer and deep zone, how the temperature is a bit more consistent in the deeper zones, and how the surface layer is a bit more warmed because of the sunlight. So this way you can talk about factors affecting a spatial and vertical distribution. Then you need to address the second part of the question, which is impacts on marine and climate system. Impacts on marine and climate system. What is the impact? Biodiversity of coral reefs. You can write if temperature increases exceeds a permissible limit, it will lead to degradation of coral reefs, upwelling of cold, nutrient-rich water, boost fisheries, and any unsustainable and harmful variation in temperature will adversely impact this nutrient enrichment. Then you can also talk about vertical stratification, how it influences oxygen nutrient cycles in oceans. Likewise, in terms of climatic system, you can connect the oceanic temperatures with El Nino, cyclones, La Nina, El Nina, monsoon, ITCZ. These things you can connect in your answer. The fifth question is, in the context of growing emphasis on coastal infrastructure and the blue economy, so again, this is the giving the context. Actual question is starting from here. Explain the causes of ocean tides. Explain the causes of ocean tides. This is the first question. Why ocean tides happen? You need to give the causes. Question is not asking you to write about ocean tides everything. Question is not asking about definition of ocean tides or where the ocean tides are happening, are occurring. Question is asking about the causes of ocean tides. What are the reasons because of which ocean tides actually happen, actually occur? How do tides influence navigation, port operations, and maritime planning? Now, the second part of the question is asking you to establish the connection between tides with three things. First is navigation. Second is port operations. And third is maritime planning. Question expects you to write to establish the connection between ocean tides. That means how tides are influencing navigation, port operations, and maritime planning. These three things you must be addressing in your answer. First thing, what are the causes of ocean tides? Tides, to very basic thing you must be aware of. They like when दो तरीके हैं, two kinds, like when sun, earth and moon are aligned in the same way, so there is a bulge, the direction of alignment. And when sun and moon are on 90 degrees, then like the alignment is more on in the direction of the moon. You can write about high tide, low tide, you can give a brief definition, and then you can switch to writing about causes of ocean tides. अब causes of ocean tides में basically जो है, what is the cause of ocean tides? That is related to position of sun and moon. Now, the better you can elaborate, better you can express these about these positions, better quality your answer will be having. So, gravitational pull of moon, gravitational pull of sun, centrifugal force of earth-moon system, and relative positions of sun, moon and earth, and how they are causing spring tides and neap tides. These things you need to write in your answer. Then influence of tides on maritime activities. So maritime activity, we identified 3 points. What is the influence of tides on maritime navigation? High tides help ships. Water level अगर बढ़ गया high tides के time में, तो it becomes easier for ships to enter the ports. Likewise, port operation, loading, unloading is optimized during high tide. And maritime planning, if suppose some company plans to invest in geothermal energy, obviously that company will be analyzing, assessing where are the kinds of tides and where are their locations, what are their locations. So tidal energy projects in Gulf of Khambat, Gulf of Kutch. Fishing activities are also very much influenced by tidal incidents. So these 3 things, navigation, port operations and maritime planning, if you can write 2 points in all the 3 dimensions, you are going to address the demand of the question. 6th question is, discuss the major evidences supporting the continental drift theory. The question is about continental drift theory. How does this theory differ from the modern plate tectonics theory? So the first thing is, question is asking you to write about continental drift theory. Actually, question is not asking to write everything about continental drift theory. Question is asking about the evidences. Like, on what basis you can say that there is a continental drift? Now, reading the word continental drift theory, there are students who are actually writing everything about continental drift theory. They are giving its definition, they are exploring its mechanism, how it is happening, the process, but they are not writing the evidences that support continental drift theory, which is the actual demand. So, make sure that you are writing the answer, you are writing the words, using your words, sentences that express this point, evidences regarding continental drift theory. Second part of the question expects you to differentiate between CDT and PTT, plate tectonics theory. How is CDT different from plate tectonics theory? First thing, what are the evidences supported? So, what are the evidences supporting CDT? So, continental, you can give a brief introduction about continental drift theory, that it was given by Wegener in the year around 1912 and 15. And then you can talk about jigsaw fit of continents, like how you can give example of Africa and South America, that how the shape of Africa and South America appears to be like a jigsaw fit, कि एक दूसरे के साथ तो fit हो जाएंगे. They appear to be complementing each other in terms of shape. You can also give examples in terms of fossil evidence, that how similar kinds of fossils are found on widely separated oceans, for example in South America and Africa, which tells us, which makes us assume that these two continents were actually once part of one continent, and in the geological period of time, long ago, in couple of years ago, couple of million, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they got separated. You can also talk about geological structures, like how Appalachians in North America and Caledonian in Europe. You can talk in terms of their structure and how they resemble each other. And this way you can give three evidences coupled with examples, and with these evidences you can establish that based on these evidences, Wegener established the continental drift theory. But then you should shift to plate tectonics theory, and you need to establish how continental drift theory is different from plate tectonics theory. How it is different? So you can like write about the pole fleeing force, which was given under continental drift theory. Then you can write about how plate tectonics theory, which is the modern theory, which is talks about like movement via mental convection currents. You can also write about like continental drift theory said that only continents move, and plate tectonics theory said that entire lithosphere moves. Likewise, scientific foundations, like in terms of scientific foundations, can say that continental drift theory lacked solid scientific evidence, but the plate tectonics theory is actually evidence backed, and you can mention sea floor spreading. So this way you can differentiate तीन तरीके से, ड्राइविंग मैकेनिज्म, nature of movement, and scientific foundation. If you can differentiate it, you will be able to write, you will be able to present your answer in a very appealing and presentable manner. Seventh question is, the Earth's surface is shaped by the continuous interaction of constructive and destructive geomorphic processes. What kind of processes? Constructive and destructive. What? Geomorphic processes. What kind of processes? Constructive and destructive geomorphic processes. So Earth's surface is shaped by continuous interaction of these kinds of geomorphic processes. Discuss the nature of this interaction and its impact on landform development. So this question has only one part. This is actually giving you the context. First three lines are giving you the context. The context is constructive and destructive geomorphic processes. Actual question is, discuss the nature of this interaction and its impact. Discuss the nature of interaction and its impact. Impact किस चीज पे? On landform development. So the question is giving a context in terms of geomorphic processes. Geomorphic processes are of two kinds, destructive and constructive, and the question is asking you to discuss the nature of this interaction and its impact on landform development. You should understand the word continuous interaction. Interaction of what? Interaction of constructive and destructive forces. दोनों तरीके के forces आपस में interact कर रहे हैं, which is leading to shaping of Earth's surface. Earth's surface is not decided, not defined, not made, not formed only by one force. It is a result of the interaction of constructive and destructive, both the forces. This you should understand from the question statement. Now, what are the constructive forces? You can write in terms of endogenic and exogenic. How constructive forces, how like volcanism leading to lava plateaus, volcanic cones, islands, like something is getting constructed, that means constructive force. Then you can talk about exogenic constructive forces. Exogenic means outside forces. Endogenic means that is responsible from inside the earth. So volcanic eruptions, the basic fire is coming from inside the earth. Exogenic process, you can write about deltas, floodplains, moraines. We discussed a while ago in the glacial question. Loess, beaches, these things you can tie. Like how these are exogenic constructive forces. Like how something new is getting constructed because of these forces. Then you write about destructive forces. What is destructive forces? Forces because of which something is getting destructed. Simple सी बात. ऐसी फोर्सेस जिसकी वजह से कुछ चीज बर्बाद हो रहा है, तहस नहस हो रहा. So that is destructive forces. Again, you can write in terms of exogenic and endogenic, how weathering, erosion, these are like leading to destructive, acting as a destructive forces. And endogenic destructive forces, you can write about earthquakes and then again volcanoes, how volcanoes can also lead to destruction. So this way you can categorize the body of your answer in two parts, constructive forces, destructive forces, and then you can subcategorize those in the endogenic and exogenic parts. Then the interaction, how the interaction between these two constructive and destructive forces impact landform development. This is like very important part of the question. This is actually the demand of the question. So you can write about building of mountains, you can write about a volcano builds cones and it is later getting eroded into caldera and plains. You can, very good example it is, rivers erode valleys, they deposit fertile deltas. So river is eroding a valley, that is acting as a destruction. But later, while before meeting the ocean or sea, rivers are depositing their materials and they are like acting as a constructive force. तो destructive और constructive के बीच में अगर आपको differentiate करके आपको ये आंसर लिखना है, it is not that you keep writing everything about erosion, weathering. It is not going to meet the demand of the question. You should be writing how mountains built by tectonic uplift, that is a constructive. Mountains getting built, construction हो गया, नई चीज बन गई. But with the time they are getting withered, they are getting eroded. So destruction भी हो रहा है, they are getting converted into plains, plateaus. So question is about interaction between constructive and destructive forces. So this way you can like elaborate. Next question is, discuss the composition of the Earth's atmosphere. How does the vertical and horizontal variation? First part is discuss the composition of Earth's atmosphere. At the start of the session, I guess, in first or second question, we talked about internal structure of the Earth. This question is about Earth's atmosphere ka composition. Second part of the question is, how does the vertical and horizontal variation in its constituents influence climatic and weather patterns? How does the vertical and horizontal variation in its constituents Means when you are writing about the Earth's composition of Earth's atmosphere, the second part expects you to differentiate or categorize between vertical and horizontal variation in its constituents and how do they influence climatic and weather patterns. Again, you need to establish the connection between the composition of the Earth to the climatic and weather patterns. What is the composition of the Earth? Basic things. You can write about the gases, permanent gases, variable gases. If you know the fact, like what is the percentage of nitrogen, what is the percentage of oxygen, carbon dioxide, then that is obviously going to make your answer very value rich, value added. So like water vapor, and like you can also write how carbon dioxide is like a greenhouse is a gas related to greenhouse effect. You can also write about water vapor, how it is related to weather phenomena. So these things, basic things you can mention. Then you can talk about vertical variation, because the question is also mentions vertical and horizontal variation. So what is vertical variation? Vertical variation means with the increase in altitude. Vertical variation means going upside. So troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere. You can write about these different layers of atmosphere, and you can also briefly write 1-2 key terms you can add here and there about what is their importance, like in troposphere, whether phenomena happen and where is ozone located. These ways you can like add some key terms to maybe to beautify and make your answer value rich. Then you should write about horizontal variation. Horizontal means how like latitude wise and how geography, how latitude like heavy rainfall in equator regions, polar regions are very cold. Then in terms of geography, coastal areas, continental interiors actually have extreme temperature variations. Question is entirely about variations, and it is asking in terms of horizontal and vertical. Vertically we discussed. Horizontal we can write how these variations actually getting affected horizontally. Then influence on climate and weather, role of water vapor, role of carbon dioxide, role of aerosols acting as a cloud condensation nuclei. Then latitudinal variations, how ITCZ shifts, how monsoons come and go, and how polar vortex come and go. So this way you can write about the influence on climate and weather. Next question is, how does the unequal distribution of solar energy across different regions and time periods influence the variability of weather and climate on Earth? So unequal distribution of solar energy. Solar energy is unequally distributed across different regions of Earth. Question is, how does this unequal distribution influences the variability of weather and climate on Earth? So the question expects you to establish the relation between unequal distribution of solar energy with variability of weather and climate. Explain with suitable examples. Examples have to be given as demanded in the question. So why solar energy? Why solar energy is distributed unequally? Latitude, day-night cycle, axial tilt. All these are basic determinants of different different intensity of solar light, different levels of variations of solar light across Earth. So, तीन चार चीजें याद रखनी है. First thing is latitude, second is axial tilt, then third is altitude. If you can remember these three, then remaining day-night cycle and cloud cover and albedo you can explore accordingly. Then influence on weather and climate. So first thing is temperature distribution. You can like write in terms of equator and poles, how equator is getting more sunlight and how poles are getting less sunlight, and how it is impacting their corresponding weather and climate. Likewise, you can talk in terms of pressure and wind systems and ocean currents and diurnal and seasonal variations. So this way you can write about like how differential heating of land and water, currents like Gulf Stream, Kuroshio, Venezuela. You can write about like differential heating is happening because of because of the variation in insolation and variation in sunlight, variation in heating by sunlight. Ocean currents are also getting heated in a different way, which is ultimately leading to different kinds of ocean currents, warm currents and cold currents, and how they are impacting the corresponding climate and weather. These things you need to elaborate. The last question is, in the context of increasing frequency of cyclonic storms in the Indian Ocean region, explain why tropical cyclones originate overseas. Explain why tropical cyclones originate overseas. ऐसा क्या कारण है कि साइक्लोन्स समुद्र के ऊपर ही ओरिजिनेट होते हैं? व्हाट आर द रीजंस दैट ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन्स ओरिजिनेट ओवरसीज? Question is asking you to explain. Then identify the region within the cyclone. So it is about within the cyclone, what is the region associated with torrential rains, high velocity winds, and explain the reasons for such intense activity. The question itself is very intense, the topic is also intense, and the question is also expecting you to write intense. Very good. So explain why tropical cyclones originate overseas, identify the region within the cyclone associated with torrential rains and high velocity winds, and explain the reasons for such intense activity. So first thing, why overseas? You can write about warm ocean surface. You can write about high evaporation leading to condensation, which releases latent heat, fuels convection, Coriolis force, very important factor regarding formation of tropical cyclones. Then low vertical wind shear. These key terms, 4 key terms associated with formation of cyclones are very important. You must be knowing this. You just need to elaborate this as why it happens overseas. You can write that land cannot sustain such conditions due to lack of moisture and frictional resistance. Because question पूछ रहा है कि why it happens on sea, so you should also tell because of these reasons it happens only on sea or it cannot happen on land. Then region of torrential rains and high winds within the cyclone. So Ivor region. So you can write about Ivor region, how a dense ring of cumulonimbus clouds surrounding the calm eye and how pressure gradients is steepest. Then you can also write moisture laden air rises rapidly leading to heavy rainfall. Question also mentioned about intensity, why the intensity is so high in that region of the cyclone. So latent heat, a very good concept related to, which is also related to like cycle formation and cyclones and its intensity, strong updrafts, steep pressure gradient, conservation of angular momentum related to Coriolis force that makes the cyclone encircling, keeps it encircling, and feedback loop. These are some 4 basic key terms which you can elaborate and you can express your answer very beautifully. So in this way we reach the end of this session. So try to incorporate whatever you are writing is very good, but try to tweak your answers as per the demand of the question. Then you will obviously be getting very good marks. Hope this session was useful. Take care. All the best.